name's Jason. I'm the founder of Inertian Boards, and in this video I'd like to talk to you about selecting the perfect motor for your next electric skateboard build. So as you can see here, I've got the new r-spec 2.0 e-board motor, which I'll talk about in more detail later on in the video. But what I wanted to probably address first is the big question about what's the best motor, or why use a particular motor for an electric skateboard. Now, we've gone with brushless Outrunner motors. One of the simple reasons is massive power to weight ratio. Think about it. These motors are really popular with RC plane enthusiasts. Do you think they would put a big bulky thing on the front of their plane? No, they've got to use the motor technology that offers the most power and the lightest weight. And the brushless Outrunner motor has proven time and time again that it can put the most power out for the lowest mass. And on an e-board, that's really what you want as well. You don't want a big chunky brick hanging off the back of your skateboard. You want something really light, really powerful, and that's why we go with the brushless Outrunners. So one of the things I want to talk about and often get asked about is what's the best motor? And when I first started making electric skateboards, it was a question I wanted to know, you know. I wanted something affordable, but I didn't want a piece of crap. I wanted a good quality motor. I was happy to invest a bit more into it if I knew it was good, but there's no way of knowing. You know, there's no information out there saying why motors are better or worse than each other. And you know, at the end of the day, it just came down to trial and error for me. I had to basically buy a lot of motors and test them out. I used several from the hobby store. I also have been directly to factories and sampled different motors from all different brushless Outrunner factories, and that's really what I want to talk to you about in this video. I've learned a lot and I want to pass that information on so you can make an educated decision and build a really good quality electric skateboard at home. So firstly, I want to talk about the false economy. It's a problem that I see over and over again. And I fell into the trap a little bit myself as well. When you first plan to build your electric skateboard, you have a budget in mind, and often the DIY enthusiasts like me and you, we're doing it ourselves because we don't have a lot of money. We've got to try to do the best we can with the budget we have. So oftentimes you'll end up buying the cheapest motor, the cheapest motor controller, the cheapest batteries. You know, there's a pattern. You end up with a product at the end of the day which really didn't cost a lot, but does it give you the longevity? Is it reliable? Can you trust it that when you want to go out for a skate, you can grab that thing, jump on it, and you're not going to have a problem? And that's really the thing that I've been focusing on a lot with my business, because what we need to do is, as DIYers, is not only build stuff ourselves, but build really high quality stuff. So then other people come along and look at it, we can be confident. We know that what we've built is superior, and that's what we're all about at Inertian. You can build a superior quality electric skateboard in your own garage using our components and know it's going to be reliable. So let's just go through some of the reasons the cheap stuff fails and why it's cheap. Why can the hobby stores online, the massive hobby stores, sell motors for so little amount of money? Well, I can tell you, the way they do it is they take parts out that they don't think are important, or they use lower quality parts because they don't think it's important. At Inertian, we've realized it is important. You can't take stuff out of the motor because it'll basically fail on you. So here I've just gone through my workshop and got a few bits and pieces of motors that I've accumulated from my testing over the last 12 months. Here's a popular one, the NTM prop drive. I used this plenty in the early days on my boards, and surprisingly they're pretty good. But the big surprise with them is it's not true for all of them. The first ever set I got were great, they were bulletproof. They got hot, don't get me wrong, but you could manage that. But then, you know, I'd get some for my friends. Bang, they'd blow up straight away. I'd get some more for something else, and one was good, one wasn't good. And, you know, at the end of the day, I just couldn't work it out. What's going on? How come some are good, fine, no worries, and some just fail? So, of course, you start pulling them apart, you start reading more, you start learning, you start testing. You know, lots of different motors here. That's actually a part of inside of the r-spec, which I'll show you in detail in a minute. But for instance, one of the biggest causes for motors to fail in an electric skateboard is generally just overheating. If they get too hot, the insulation around the copper windings here melts and it shorts out, or the insulation around the phase wires here melts and they short out against each other. So the other reason a motor can overheat is generally due to just being overworked. You know, if you haven't got your drivetrain set up perfectly for the capabilities of the motor, if you're a bigger person, you know, I'm just under 100 kilos, so it's a decent sized load. If you're going up hills, there's more load. So, you know, the setup that you have is important, because if you're wanting to go up hills, and if you're a bigger guy like me, and if your parts aren't any good, they cook, and that's it, game over. Unless you want to try to fix that yourself, you could. But when you start looking at what's missing, how come this can be so cheap at the hobby store? Well, there are a few things. So that's why I've got this r-spec motor open here. One of the things that's missing completely out of most hobby motors is this locking ring here. It's basically a piece of aluminium CNC to slot inside the barrel, and what it does, it holds all of the magnets perfectly in line around the barrel. So it's a spacer of the magnets. It also provides extra structure inside the barrel. This means that overall the strength of this barrel is greater. It won't warp, it won't flex, and that's important. One of the other inconsistencies you'll see is how the state is wound. Sometimes it's really poor quality winding, and you know, there might be a bit of extra copper hanging out, and that's not great for the balance of the motor or the electrical capabilities inside the motor. A common other problem that you see with the hobby motors is just the assembly of them is often not great. Often the little set screw that holds the shaft in position, I've had brand new motors from the hobby store and that's been completely loose. I've had motors direct from factories sent where I can literally turn the barrel just with my hand. The quality of the glues that they're using just are low quality. You know, all these things add up to give you a low quality, unreliable motor, which eventually, unfortunately, will fail when you least expect it. One of the other things that I've seen quite a lot is the glue that holds the magnets in position, especially if they don't have a locking ring to help hold the magnets in position. The magnets can shift, which completely ruins the torque output in the motor. Sometimes they'll lift and they'll contact the stator, and you know, obviously that's not good. for something that needs to spin around. It basically gets jammed and can literally throw you off the skateboard. So there are a few problems that I've had, and I've definitely heard the same problems echoed on the online communities with cheap motors. So we've definitely been happy not to have those problems anymore. Developing our own motor has been challenging, but it's been worth it. So I'll just quickly go through the specs on the new r-spec motor. So this is how they come in the pack. You basically get the motor, of course. There's two circlips there, which you need them to hold the pulley in the perfect position there, and you also get the female 5.5mm gold plated connectors to match up perfectly with the connectors that are on the ends of the wire here. There's 20 centimeters of high quality silicon insulated high strand count wire. It's nice and flexible, and that's important when you're building a skateboard, because a truck, when steering, pivots. Constant pivoting of any material will eventually weaken it and it'll snap off. If you take a look at these wires that come on the NTM prop drive, you can see they're not flexible, they're stiff. It's basically the stator wire bundled up and fed out with some shrink tube on it. If I did this long enough, it would just snap. They're not really designed for flexing like that. That's why with the r-spec 2.0, we've got plenty of length, so you've got the slack, and so when the pivoting's happening, it doesn't occur here, it's in the wire here. You've got plenty of wire there, plenty of slack, so the skate truck can freely move, and it doesn't constantly work on the actual joint in here inside the motor, and it will last a lot longer because of that simple fact. So just the specs of this motor, it's a 63mm diameter. It's 55mm body length. Okay, so it's called a 63-55. Now, the beauty of a 63-55 is on a truck, I've got one just here, you can easily fit two of them together like that. And if you're a bigger guy like me, or you just like a lot of torque, fast acceleration, bombing up hills and down them, you want two motors. Okay, so that's about as long as you can get for dual mounted motors. This is a 190 kV motor. Now that's perfect for the 10 cell space battery from Inertian and the 83mm diameter wheels. It's, you know, that the drivetrain that we offer with this motor, our battery and these wheels gives you about a top speed of 45 kilometers an hour. So that's just a quick overview of the specs. But what I'd really like to do is talk about why we've gone with this motor. What makes it good? What makes this better than the cheaper ones? Now, price wise, this isn't the most expensive motor on the market. It's set at an affordable price point, but it's not the cheapest either. And I'd like to explain why you have to pay sometimes to get something decent. You don't want to fall into the false economy trap. So, just pack that up. So, we'll use this one that I already have open just to demonstrate something. So the first thing that I noticed when I got this sample from the factory is it's precision built. It's made with the latest CNC machinery, the tolerances are really tight. You know, there's not a lot of slop or anything like that that's noticeable in the motor, and you can feel that when you pick it up. That's one thing I've always said. Some things just feel good and some things don't. So it's definitely a precision made motor, which is good. The other thing you'll notice if you decide to pull it apart, but otherwise you might be able to see it on this video, it's a balanced motor. There's little dobs of epoxy that are put around the motor. Now this is done during the balancing process. These are computer balanced motors. They're spun at high RPMs and they're monitored with special equipment to see if there's any inconsistencies with the assembly, and if there are, they'll balance it out with these tiny little weights essentially, and that will give you lower vibrations and it will give you greater longevity with your bearings, and overall just a better running motor, and that's really important. The other key benefit of the r-spec e-board motor is high quality magnets. These are rare earth neodymium magnets rated for high temperatures, which is important in an electric skateboard because you can peak the temps when you're accelerating hard, hitting a high angle of a hill climb. You can get high temp peaks, and you don't want to demagnetize the magnets, so you need magnets that are rated for those sorts of temperatures. There's plenty of motors that will use cheaper magnets that aren't temp rated for that sort of use. Another feature that's worth noting is our logo. It's laser etched on the barrel here. This might not sound like a major feature, but it's important to note because some motors have a sticker on there for their logo, and if that's put on after the motor's been balanced, it throws the whole thing out. So it's important just for us to mention that is a nice little feature there. So just looking at this side of the motor assembly where the stator's positioned and the bearings, the stator that we have here is a high quality silicon steel stator. It's fully coated in epoxy, which helps prevent cutting into the magnet wire. It removes some of the sharp edges there that can cause a problem and short out in the windings of the motor. The copper windings in the inertian r-spec motor have a multi-layer polyurethane insulation. Now, it's not uncommon for this, but it's important that this insulation can handle high temperatures, and this particular grade of copper windings is rated for 180 degrees, so it can get quite hot, and the multi-layer polyurethane insulation prevents the shorts from happening amongst all these wires. Obviously when you have wire with current running through it, you can't cross it against each other because it will short out. So each strand of wire here is coated with that multi-layer polyurethane, and it's rated for high temperatures. Whilst we're talking about the windings in the r-spec motor, it's important to note that all the motors are machine wound. This ensures a quality and consistent winding of the copper. It also helps prevent shorts from wire being pulled too tightly, which can happen when it's being hand wound. The wire can get damaged, the insulation could get damaged. So these are wound by a machine, which does a much more accurate job of it and gives you a much greater consistency. Whilst we're on this part of the motor assembly, it's worth talking about the bearings. There are 3 high precision bearings. They're a shielded bearing, so they won't get muck and grit inside there, and give you a much longer life, hassle free. All of the adhesives used inside the inertian r-spec motor are high quality adhesives, temperature rated, so that your motor won't fall apart if it starts experiencing some peak temps. So hopefully now you've got a good understanding of what goes into making a quality motor. The cheap ones just don't cut it, and if you want to build a high quality electric skateboard at home, I suggest you look at the Inertian r-spec 2.0. It's a great motor, it's reliable, it can handle the high peak temps, and it's got plenty of torque to get you up the steepest climbs and accelerate you faster than anyone else. My name's Jason, I'm the founder of Inertian Boards. If you've got any questions, head over to the forum electricskateboard.builders and ask your questions. I'll be there to help you, along with plenty of other experts in the DIY electric skateboard industry. Thank you, see you later.